Just don't curse.
Yo, fellas, y'all ready to do this?
Yeah, what's up, guys? What's up, man?
Boys, the man in effect. Yeah, and it's about time. Yo, let's rip this up.
Boys, the man. Boys, the man. Boys, the man.
Skip the beat, nah. While cooling on South Street, jet black band, plenty of friends,
and all the Philly states you can eat.
Back in school, we used to dream about this every day. Could it really happen? Or do dreams just fade away? Yeah. Then we started singing and lazy to sound smooth. Then we started a group and here we are, kicking it just for you.
Yo, these 4 new jacks is real smooth on the harmony tip. Nate, Mike, Sean, one, you know the mentality. Keep flipping the gift.
The spotlight is on us now. Watch us do this. Live and direct from Philly town.
We're rapping, hyping, we can get down.
We are ready to roll, so now the world will know that we love. Back in school, we used to dream about this every day.
Could it really happen?
Or do dreams just fade away? Then we started singing and lazy to sound smooth. So we started a group and here we are, kicking it just for you. Doing a little East Coast swing. Boys coming, going on. Not too hard, not too soft. Boys the men, there is no 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 singing and dancing in the
Now check this out. One day back in Philly, 4 guys wanted to sing. They came up to me, I said, well, what's your name? Hey, you know what I'm saying? And then I said, all right, fellas, well, let me see what you can do. And then a smile when they won you and said, yo, Mike, check this out. See if this one moves.
ABC, BBD.
No one told you life was gonna be this way. You
love's a joke you broke, your love life's to your way. It's like you're always stuck in second gear, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too. You're still in bed at 10 and work again at 8. You burned your breakfast so far, things are going great. Your mother warned you there'd be days like these, but she didn't tell you when the world was brought you down to your knees. And I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too. No one could ever know me, no one could ever see me. Seems you're the only one who knows what it's like to be me. Someone to face the day with, make it through all the rest with. Someone I always laugh with, even at my worst, my best with you. Yeah. It's like you're always stuck in second gear, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our closing day, our final day of our virtual Homecoming 2021 here at Mary Baldwin University. My name is Adrienne Teague. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Engagement, and I'm so thrilled to be here at your alma mater and in serving our alumni in this most distinguished way. It's just been a great weekend so far, and we are thrilled to death to be here in the company of our program for the exceptionally gifted alumni as we celebrate the honor tenet of our theme this year, which comes from the Mary Baldwin hymn, friendship, honor, sorrow, laughter are the ways by which we learn. And I think that it's fair to say that over this past year, we've experienced all of these different emotions and feelings, but today we hope that you're filled with friendship and laughter, and that you feel like we have honored you in celebrating 35 years of the PEG program here at Mary Baldwin. So thank you for joining us. Just a quick housekeeping note, the session is being recorded, but once we move into the PEG reunion, which is specifically for PEG alumni following the event, we will turn that recording off. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up, but we do want to share this with our alumni who couldn't be with us here today at this time. If you would, and if you're familiar with Zoom, if you will move your mouse or hit your screen and click the participants icon, you'll see a list pop up. Your name should be at the very top of that list, just to help us know who's here today. And when we get to the breakout sessions of today's event, if you can let us know if you're a Mary Baldwin alum, let us know what class year you're affiliated with. If you're a PEG alum, can you put PEG and your class year associated with it there? Or if you're a PEG non-degreed alum, just put PEG and the years that you were here. That works just as well. But we want to make sure that we're able to get you in the right breakout room as we get to that part of our reunion today. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome as our first topic, we're going to take you through a journey of the 35 years of PEG. We're going to take you from its founding to hearing from what current students are going through to looking forward into the future and how you can connect as PEG alumni with us. And so I am very excited to invite my good colleague and friend. I feel like I can say he's been with me since the first day, treated me to lunch down at the depot, and has just been very, very sincere in his efforts to make sure that I'm prepared to do all that I can do for PEG and for our alumni community. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Roderic Owen, professor of philosophy, who is just most recently retired. And so, Rod, thank you so much for being here with us today to share your reflections on the creation of the program for the exceptionally gifted. And we're just so very happy that you get to kick back a little bit and hope that the first couple of weeks of your retirement have been enjoyable. So welcome, Rod.
Thank you, Adrian, and we appreciate your leadership pulling all this together. And I'm going to jump right in. And I want to begin by talking about the origins and the early context of our PEG program. Once upon a time, many years ago, a courageous, historic women's college came up with an innovative idea. Let's reach out, creatively, empathetically support the learning and development of very gifted girls from across the USA and maybe beyond our nation's boundaries. And so the program for exceptionally gifted girls began to take shape 36 years ago. Mary Baldwin was a very different place back then. The college was no longer simply an historic residential women's college exclusively focused on the traditional liberal arts. Other women's colleges at that time either had already closed or they'd gone co-ed, and the few that were determined to stay the course had a much larger endowment. Mary Baldwin was different. We already had added several pre-professional areas, and in the late 70s, an outreach program for returning adult students, the adult degree program, had been created. Active summer programs such as Elder Hostel and programs serving Japanese students and young women in science were all being implemented with an eye towards new revenue streams while still serving our core mission. There's no question that the college's finances had suffered a decline in the 70s. We certainly did not enjoy a large financial endowment, and admissions had been struggling. After all, the research then was very clear. The pool of young women who'd even consider attending a women's college, let alone apply, had been rapidly dwindling. In 1977, the new president, Dr. Virginia Lester, the first woman leader and a Yankee educator with a background in non-traditional education, she'd been charged by the board to bring the college into the black, not just through fiscal prudence and assertive admission, but also through new program creation serving new student constituencies. So by 1983-84, Mary Baldwin was in the throes of rapid change under President Lester. But she'd become a controversial leader, widely distrusted by the faculty and largely rejected by the local community. Dr. Lester's efforts to build a different path for Mary Baldwin, other than going co-ed, had involved expanding both the college's mission and the type of students recruited and served by us. Under her tenure, several pre-professional departments have been introduced: communication, med tech, social work, and business, and teacher education continued to expand. So based on her experience at Union Graduate School and the Empire State Program in New York, Dr. Lester began a non-traditional, non-residential program to serve returning adult students, men and women, the adult degree program. It was she who first conceived of a program serving young, gifted girls. The concept and philosophy of this experiment in college admissions, oriented to meet both the intellectual and the social psychological needs of gifted girls, ranging in age from 12 to 17, it was novel and innovative, but at the time, it was also risky and open to criticism, both in terms of its philosophy and in regards to its financial viability. Moreover, as the criticisms of Dr. Lester's leadership accumulated, she submitted her resignation in 1984, and it would be up to the newly appointed president, Dr. Cynthia Tyson, to actually implement PEG. And it should be noted, though, that despite the turmoil associated with Dr. Lester's final couple of years as president, there was never any public criticism aimed at this early conception of PEG. Indeed, Dr. Tyson made it clear from the start that planning for PEG would proceed. So let's talk about the first year. The first PEG director, Ms. Christine Garrison, arrived at Mary Baldwin in August of '84. She was charged with fully fleshing out the co-curricular dimensions of PEG and recruiting a pilot group of as many as 30. T, as she was known by her friends and colleagues, she was a former high school principal and a college professor who'd been working with exceptionally gifted youth for about 8 years. And T was often quoted in this first year. She made these kinds of statements, and this is T's voice now. This program is unique in that it is the only program in the world for those students who can handle 8 years of schooling in 5 years. Another statement, the whole point of PEG is to provide a community which does not isolate the gifted female student as a normal school environment might. Another statement from T, at Mary Baldwin, women are valued, taught, and allowed space for thinking. The PEG program can offer benefits to the total Mary Baldwin program. In PEG, there's always an opportunity to welcome a program that will invite national attention. Now, initially, it was thought that Mary Baldwin and Stewart Hall, which is a local residential boarding school, that we work together, and PEGs would be taking high school honors courses along with college classes. But that idea rapidly faded by the second year of the program. So during the first few years, PEGs were housed in Tullidge, a site selected, I think somewhat ironically, because Tullidge was, because of its relative seclusion, as well as providing room for expansion. At the time, there was perhaps a stronger sense of in loco parentis, with the college bearing both an ethical and legal responsibility for the social and psychological development and supervision of students under the age of 18. Now, as you all might imagine, early PEGs would begrudgingly acknowledge and accept the need for social and psychological support, at least from those they deemed worthy, but they rarely were very happy with the imposed rules for supervision. I saw one early planning document, and it was noted that the characteristics of gifted girls have been taken into account into all aspects of PEG design. I'm just going to give you a few examples. So these were sort of the principles, characteristics of gifted girls, and how Mary Baldwin's PEG program these first few years would match them. Academic characteristics, an innate desire to learn, demonstrated by high achievement and initiative in academic studies. Mary Baldwin would provide a unique combination of acceleration and enrichment. Precocious intellectual abilities. There would be academic acceleration, provide opportunities to work well beyond one's grade or developmental level. Intense interests and curiosity. We are a liberal arts program, and we have a faculty who recognize and actively support the need for in-depth knowledge and are open to creatively engage with students. And creativity. We have staff and faculty who encourage and support creative expression both in and out of the classroom. Also, there were some social and emotional characteristics that were identified here in '84, '85. For example, intense desire to learn and achieve. We would provide a nurturing attitude and respect for learning. Intensity of feeling, high emotions and physical energy levels. We provide stimulating activities to choose from and give guidance. Empathy, community service opportunities to express caring and concern. And indeed, I've been involved with community service for many years, and it's been PEGs who played such a pivotal role in the founding and in the early years of the Spencer Center. PEGs need both peer group support and a sense of individuality. So Mary Baldwin's PEG would provide opportunities for students to live with others like themselves, but still make individual choices available. Need for supervision and structure. Staff would be available 24 hours a day. There'd be student government. There'd be use of logic and discussion for the development of PEG residential structure and rules. And then also fear of failure. Fear that one's gifts are temporary, maybe not real, and also perfectionism. And here again, the staff would be trained in this, would be provide encouragement and support of risk-taking. And also in the early years, as some of you will recall, there was a structured model women's colloquium that was held on a regular basis. And in various ways, that's come back, I think, in different forms. What about the first, beyond then, the origins of the first year, this first decade? By May of 1989, there were 5 young women from the charter class of 11 originally. They graduated, they were all 18 or 19 years of age. And I think I've seen 1 or 2 of them on the screen now. Ann Byford, Julie Sykes, Nicole Angrasano, Jennifer Luttman, and Ashley Dulac. These students, to a person, emphasized they had no regrets about missing high school, and they simply had not been intellectually challenged prior to their arrival at Mary Baldwin. Indeed, as is often the case, several of these students had felt alienated from their peers in middle and high school. And reflecting a trend that would continue, I think, over the coming decades, some were planning on graduate school immediately, while others are planning on international travel or various forms of community service prior to considering graduate study. In 1988, I had a real pleasure of leading 12 PEG students along with the PEG director, T. Garrison, and a special older friend of mine who served as an informal surrogate grandmother. We all went on a 3-week-long May term trip to Wales, Cymru. We had an extraordinary time, and the students soaked up the Welsh language at Nant Gwrthauyn, a leading residential village for learners situated on the Llyn Peninsula overlooking the Irish Sea. One of those students, not only did she fall in love with Wales, but eventually she fell in love with a Welshman, and Julie Jones lives in Aberystwyth to this day. Hi, Julie. Indeed, during the first decade and a half of this PEG program, I was often approached by PEGs who had a special love of everything Celtic. And I would set up a non-credit Welsh class focused not only on language, but also on the distinctive literature and culture of Wales. You know, for these PEGs, the fact that our meetings were non-credit and would never appear in a transcript, it was irrelevant. This was undertaken for the sheer intrinsic joy of learning. Surely, this captures the liberal education spirit and ethos of Mary Baldwin PEG students to this day. During that time, the assistant director, Dr. Celeste Rhodes, and Celeste would eventually become the second PEG director, she noted that the PEG experience was far more than an early entrance program. Here's Celeste's words. PEG provides a strong support to students who live together. PEG setting at a women's college is important. The absence of male students allows students to focus on academic goals and to take on greater leadership roles. By 2003, Celeste noted that PEG by then almost had 80 students. They were enrolled and most were living in the new PEG Center at the heart of campus. Celeste emphasized a point I think that is true to this day. These are her words. Wherever they have gone, whatever they have pursued, these extraordinary young women have continued to seek out personal and professional challenges that promote their growth. Even more important, they aim to make a difference in the lives of others. Now, on another note, there's been generous financial support through grants, especially in the first 20 years of PEG. The Jessie Ball DuPont Foundation, well, they provided $250,000 in seed money. This is in 83, 84. In 1987, the foundation followed up with a grant of $1.22 million. At that time, it was the largest single grant from the DuPont Fund. Clearly, the documented success of the PEG program in its early years was pivotal, and the new monies were used to increase scholarships, hire new faculty and a guidance counselor, and upgrade some of the computer and lab equipment. It was felt that support for PEG provided a ripple effect, strengthening the college overall, with PEG as the conduit. In her 7th year, PEG received a grant for $4.5 million from the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund. And there was a decision to demolish the Rufus Bailey Residence Hall. This used to be in the community, the King's Daughters Hospital, many years ago. And the decision was to construct a new building to house both PEG students and provide offices for the PEG leadership. This was almost a $6 million building specifically designed for the needs of PEG program and PEG students. And the actual total cost, when you included landscaping, paving, wiring, furnishing, was over $7 million. Now, at the time, some of the old guard had bemoaned the loss of a historic building, but most recognized it was beyond rehabilitation, and everyone lauded the interior design of what was labeled the Center for the Exceptionally Gifted. In her history, Mary Baldwin's history, Dr. Menk states, it stands as a manifestation of the success of this innovative and unique program. Now, the Malone Family Foundation, too, has been a generous benefactor and well-informed supporter of PEG. That foundation gave Mary Baldwin $2.2 million to endow PEG scholarships, and in 2002, 2003, granted Mary Baldwin $200,000 over 3 years to track students who had graduated from the PEG program. Now, that funding eventually led to the work of Roselle Solo, who was a good friend, a professional colleague of Celeste Rhodes. And so Dr. Rhodes and Dr. Solo together did research, and they published a book. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. The name of the book is College at 13, Young, Gifted, and Purposeful. This was published in 2012. I believe it's out of print, but you shouldn't have any trouble getting copies of it. Here's a very brief description of Rachel Solo and Celeste's book. And it's based on their research on PEG graduates. What's it like to be 13 and go to college? Is such a radical acceleration helpful or harmful? This book describes 14 highly gifted young women who are now in their 30s who left home to go to college at age 13 to 16, skipping most of high school. The authors describe what they were like as young college students, the leadership, idealism, sense of purposefulness that developed, and their lives 10 to 13 years later. This inspirational book will help educators and parents of gifted children understand that gifted kids need academic challenge, that there are colleges with specific programs for such students, and it doesn't harm them to leave home early, and that keeping them interested in learning is vital. So both T. Garrison and Celeste Rhodes regularly attended and presented at regional and national conferences focused on gifted education. And both PEG directors made it their mission to spread the word about what was happening at Mary Baldwin in terms of reaching out to others involved in gifted education, whether they were teachers, program directors, or as continuing and contributing scholars in the field. Now, time is limited, but I wanted to at least get a couple of very brief student statements here. And one of them I thought was this is from a student who graduated, I think Evie graduated early on, maybe the second class. But these are the words of Evie Pover. And she wrote this probably about 1989 or 86, somewhere around there. This is Evie Pover describing peer support. And given our efforts here today, I thought this would be interesting. Evie, when I first arrived at PEG, one of my main worries was everyone would be smarter than I am. One of the first things I learned was that no PEG is perfect in every class. Instead, most of us have our specialty, the subject we really love and excel at, and our non-specialty, a subject or class into which we have to put a lot of time to comprehend it. Last semester, I discovered that if I ever needed something in a textbook explained to me, I just had to go to one of my friends for help. It would probably be interesting to an outsider to see the smooth way that help is reciprocated around Tullidge Hall, the original site for PEG. In other words, a PEG may find herself giving help one day and receiving it the next. Peer support does not exist in schoolwork alone, though. Every PEG has stayed up at least once to console another PEG because of an argument, a broken heart, an upsetting phone call from home. And even when things are going well, PEG support one another with encouraging words, a greeting, or a smile. Peer support is so important because it's so hard to be in college at such an early age. Knowing that you have friends in your age group who are experiencing the same thing is a comforting feeling. That's Evie Pover. And I'll just read one more. This one comes from, this one's Diana Ballard. She graduated, I believe, in '91. She might be on this call, but if you are, Diana, I really like this. This is a very short article called PEG Etiquette, and the subtitle is Do Not Mention Age. So she passed along these things I learned at PEG. This is first, organized clothing drawers are assigned to stop procrastinating. 2, communicate early, completely, and brutally honest about expectations and needs with anyone you plan on living with for more than 5 hours. Never, ever ask anyone's age. Avoid all conversations which age is a topic, even vaguely. Keep a short mental list of other topics. Next point. Although sleep is not absolutely necessary for life or to appear alert, it can make the difference between a task taking 30 minutes or 6 hours. Friends, especially those of many years, are a treasure. Let them know how valued they are. And finally, Diana ends, when engaging in a little mischief or any action for which permission would likely not be forthcoming, act casual and confident. Most people won't notice. So I thought that was great from Diana. And there are lots of statements like that along those lines in the early PEG newsletters. I want to end, though, basically by telling you all what I have learned from doing this presentation, this short presentation on the early history of PEG. First, although the field of gifted education, it had begun in colleges of education around the country, and there had been some focus in developmental psychology and gifted girls, basically, both academic fields were really only just getting underway in the 1980s. Initially, it was the ideas and the creative thinking of both President Virginia Lester and the first PEG director, Ms. Christine Garrison. They were pivotal. And then later, Dr. Celeste Rhodes' leadership role was central. Next, given that President Lester left Mary Baldwin before PEG was actually implemented, President Cynthia Tyson took on a key supportive leadership role. She gave full confidence to Christine Garrison and then to Celeste Rhodes. Indeed, Dr. Tyson considered the PEG program to be one of Mary Baldwin College's crown jewels, and I think she used that phrase. Next, although there is an informal collection of materials in Grafton Library related to PEG right from its inception, there really are two projects that could be undertaken: organizing and documenting archival documents related to PEG, and actually writing a history of PEG. It's still out there, it needs to be done. Finally, even though I've refrained from mostly naming names of hundreds of wonderful Mary Baldwin PEG graduates over the year, it truly is an extraordinary list of very bright, highly engaged individuals. Indeed, PEGs have been regarded by me and my faculty colleagues as our tangible, personal rationale for why we decided to stay and teach at a small residential liberal arts college. Look, you are all very special people, and it has been my joy to work with you, not only in my role as a professor, but also as a fellow lover of books, ideas, theories, cultural diversity, the sciences, the arts, the humanities, in short, as lifelong devotees of the liberal arts and sciences. Thank you all. And I'll hand it over to Adrian.
Dr. Owen, I'm remiss that I didn't go to school here, but I think I can speak for everyone on the call who has either heard you speak or had you as a professor, that what you do to instill passion in education, not only for our PEG alumni, but for all of our alumni, is so appreciated. And that was so poignant and insightful and helpful. And so thank you so much for all that you do, not only for Mary Baldwin, but to keep PEG at the forefront. So I sincerely appreciate your time and your scholarly research and being with us and providing that today. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Wonderful. Well, I am so thrilled, and we're so thrilled to be able to offer this next section of our program, which highlights a day in the life of a PEG student. And so joining us on their summer break are several PEG students. And so I welcome, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming Victoria Peterson, class of 2023, Lauren Faulkner, class of 2024, Gwen Elverson, class of 2023, and Alex Wright, class of 2023. So ladies, I will ask you, just feel free to turn on your video and get ready to unmute. And Victoria, I will start it off by inviting you to unmute and share with us a little bit more about yourself and your PEG journey.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Victoria Peterson, and as we all know, PEG is one of a kind. So I'm just going to share with you, as a current PEG, some of my experiences and memories that only a PEG would do. So only a PEG would decorate the entire elevator in green wallpaper and glitter for St. Patrick's Day. And only a PEG would convince the entire dorm to dress up in 80s attire to play a version of Whodunit, as well as play a very fun / hectic game of freeze tag utilizing the entire space of the dorm. By the way, normally we do normal things, such as relaxing in the lounge. Someone's always in the lounge. And whether that's cooking, eating, studying, or watching so much Netflix, we have a fun time. So thank you, and I'll pass it to Lauren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I'm class of 2024, so I'll be a sophomore next semester. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of my experience coming in during COVID in a very hectic year. So I know with COVID and everything, things were kind of stressful, but I definitely felt that my bond with my class was incredible. Like, I think we've become friends for life, all of us. And I can say that for the sophomores in class of 2023 yet as well. We've all become really good friends. And I remember one night, we all decided to, it was Friday night, and we decided to stay up till 3 a.m. And usually this would include movies, snacks, stuff like that. We stayed up the entire night talking about philosophical ideas. We were in Dr. Owen's class at the time, so that was really good. And we talked about the current politics in the United States, the world. It was amazing. It was one of the best times of my life because I finally felt like I fit in. And it's become, we're like siblings and family. So only, as Tori was saying, only a peg would stay up till 3 a.m. talking about philosophical ideas and world politics. So, but I have to say, we did watch Princess and the Frog afterwards. Got to put that in there. All right, now I'm going to pass it on to Gwen Elverson.
Hi, everyone. So I am a class of 2023. So I'll graduate then with Victoria and Alex. And I'm just kind of going to go through a couple of things that I've experienced with like the peg. So first off, only a peg would turn a conversation on pizza toppings into a conversation of mass consumerism. That has actually happened. I may have done that. And also only a peg would forget the word for a banana, but could recite the entirety of Othello in like about 30 seconds. So I just kind of want to talk about, generally I'm always in the lounge. I'm very hands-on. I'm always the person you'll see walking down the halls, saying hi, doing weird things at the middle of the night. As Lauren said, sometimes we do stay up a little bit. And sometimes I'll even see Alice around 4 a.m. just saying hi, saying good morning. I didn't sleep, but maybe she did. So I'm going to pass it over to Alex, and thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexandra, and I'm also a class of 2023. And I'm going to be telling you a little bit about a day in my life as a PEG student. So normally I would wake up sometime between 7 or 8:30 a.m., depending on if I have an 8 a.m. class, obviously earlier for that. And then I would have breakfast, normally at Hunt, or go downtown. There's a really nice coffee shop or cafe that I like to eat at. And then I would either go to class or start on some homework, have lunch, go to another class or a lab for a science class, and then maybe watch some Netflix, do some more homework, go to dinner with friends, and then in the evening doing something relaxing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Victoria, Lauren, Gwen, and Alex, we appreciate you sharing that with us. And I think that it gives us just some really good context on what happens when you're, in your dorm and what happens when you're here at Mary Baldwin. And I just am so appreciative that the 4 of you were willing to give up some of your summer to be with us. One thing I will ask you to do, and we'll just start back with Victoria. Victoria, can you tell us where your hometown is?
Sorry, meant to push off audio, but my hometown, I live in Bowie, Maryland, and
awesome, great. Is that where you're calling from today?
Yes, I'm calling from Bowie, Maryland.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thanks for being with us. Lauren, where are you calling from, and where is home for you?
So I'm originally from Durant, Oklahoma, which is on the Texas-Oklahoma border, but I recently moved to Stanton, Virginia. So I'm calling from Stanton.
Fantastic. Hopefully summer here will be a little less harsh. Awesome. Gwen, how about you? Hometown, and where are you calling from?
So I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio right now. And I'm originally from Columbus. That's like 2 hours away from here. But we just moved up to Cleveland because my dad got a new job. So yeah, that's where I'm calling from.
Fantastic. I hope the move has gone well and you have a good summer getting adjusted. And Alex, how about you?
I am in Richmond, Virginia, and that's where home is for me, and it's very hot and humid here.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm sorry that it's hot and humid. It's definitely a warm day here as well. So, and for our PEG alumni, students may stick around during the reunion. So if you've got other questions for them, we invite you to bring those with you. And we invite our students to join in that section so that they can have a little bit of dialogue with you later on. So again, thank you all so much for your time and being with us here today. So as we get ready to move into the next section of our program, over this past year, I have had the immense pleasure of meeting, albeit virtually, almost all through Zoom, several of our PEG alumni. And I am so excited to invite a few of them to join us in this next portion called PEG in Action. And so they're going to bring to us their experiences that they've had over this past year and what life outside of PEG and Mary Baldwin has looked like for them. And so to facilitate today is one of our fellow PEG alumni, Mihaela Byrne, a class of 2007. And Mihaela has been an avid volunteer with us in this virtual space. And so I'm so grateful for her leadership and her time. And so Mihaela, thank you for all that you're doing for PEG and for Mary Baldwin and for being with us here today. And I will happily turn it over to you to bring PEG in action to life for us.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I've really appreciated all you've done through many, many events that I've worked with. And I think you're doing a lot of good for the college. And I'm really feeling quite excited about the future for PEG. It's been a long amount of 35 years, a lot of people going through this program. And I think it's really deeply touched all of our lives. And I see it more and more as I get further and further away from that 2007 graduation I had. Honestly, Roderic, thank you so much for sharing the history of PEG to learn more about our roots. I knew a few different points around the spectrum, but to really put that into one cohesive dialogue was unbelievable. So I really appreciate that for the history. And to hear from the current students, I literally got tears in my eyes from somebody only a PEG because it so resonates still with how it was when I was there. And for any other curious PEGs, I still have a PEG yearbook here from a class of, or it was 2003 to 2004, and there is a PEG quotes and only a PEG section. So if anybody's curious, you can definitely ping me and I'll see what I can get for you out of that. Now, to proceed a little bit more with the PEGs in action, I wanted to invite both Annapurna as well as Gold to talk a little bit about their experiences. I think everybody on the call knows that PEGs have a very unique life path and also very unique ways of seeing the world. And the whole world has been in a very unusual situation lately, the last year and a half or so with COVID. So we wanted to take a moment to see through the lens of two of these PEG alums, how they've interacted with the space of COVID in this last year and a half and what things they've learned in their own lives through this process. So we'll start with Annapurna. She'll introduce a little bit about herself and her background and then talk about this last year, and then we'll pass it over to Gold. So please.
Hi everyone, I'm Annapurna Chitnavis, class of 2018. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm so honored to be asked to speak and so great to see so many familiar faces, both peers and faculty. That's awesome. So I graduated in 2018. I majored in biochemistry and my minors were in piano performance and math. And then after that, I ended up taking 2 gap years. And then this past year during the pandemic, I entered medical school. So I'm currently attending the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix. And I just finished up my first year and I'm currently on my summer break. So that's kind of where I've been at this past year. And just some reflections. Thank you for some applause. So I see some reflections over the past year. I think throughout the pandemic, there's been a lot of ups and downs. I think one thing that I've been learning, I think is a lifelong skill to learn, is navigating those ups and downs. In terms of the ups, definitely as PEGs, I think it's very easy to overlook our accomplishments and to minimize that. And so I think being able to celebrate our accomplishments despite everything throughout unprecedented times and all of that has been something that I'm learning, as well as navigating the downs and being able to not only have self-care, but focusing on community care, relying on my fellow PEGs that I'm still in touch with. My closest friends are all my fellow PEG alums. So being able to reach out to them for support throughout the past year has been amazing. They're always there whenever I need them. So that's been great for me.
Would you like to share and celebrate one of your successes from this last year or even before that you've learned to honor?
Oh, sure. Getting to practice that in this moment.
Yeah,
That's great.
there you go.
I think one thing that's been great during the pandemic since I was a first year medical student, being able to be involved in vaccinating individuals in the community. So vaccinating both underserved populations as well as refugee populations and working with translators in those capacities as well has been great. And being able to make an impact despite feeling like a lot has been virtual and not able to contribute as much, that's in a way in which I was able to feel fulfilled this past year.
Absolutely. Life-saving work.
Thank you.
And do you want to share a little bit about maybe a conversation that you had with one of your friends that was especially peggish in supporting you through this time?
Definitely. There are so many that come to mind. So it's hard to
Sure.
narrow down one, but I think a lot that I discussed with PEGs with my fellow classmates was, how experiences in PEG has shaped us and how it's such a unique community, kind of thinking about all the intersections that make our community and how that all plays a role in what shaped us today. Just kind of, I guess the fact that such a niche community that is created by the PEGs that are admitted, and being able to have that shared experience of being able to have a safe place away from home to bond with fellow peers, sharing, being able to explore identities together and learning more about ourselves. So I think that's been a great reflecting back on that experience that I continue to do every time I speak to my classmates.
Excellent. I really appreciate that. All right. Gold, would you like to share a little bit more? Just for background, I every Sunday get on D&D or otherwise conversing with Gold and some of the other pegs. We did do the Homecoming Mad Libs together. It was titled Pegs and Dungeons for Dungeons and Dragons, clearly, just for color. So Gold, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to this year?
Happy to. Now that you've mentioned it, you may end up having to read them, the Mad Libs. And thank you for everyone who's given us great content so far. I feel like I've learned a lot about our history during this process. I was accepted back in 2004, 2005, something like that. And I ended up transferring away from Mary Baldwin, regrettably, but I love that I am always considered a PEG alum. And that's something that I definitely carry with me because this is where, the central community is, and then everything else was just kind of classes that I went to, right? Like this to me is still the core of my academic experience and really always will be. I transferred specifically so I could do engineering, and I continued on that path into graduate school. I did doctoral studies in like artificial intelligence and disaster management, and spent a little time jumping industries, kind of wanting to apply things to problems. And I ended up doing a lot of work in entrepreneurship and some in finance. And COVID has been really interesting for me because, I'm sure this is the correct room that it will escape none of your notices, that it's like a veil in the fabric of reality finally dropped, that this notion that the world can't change and it can't change very quickly is now gone. And I certainly spent a lot of time dealing with decision support systems and consulting with organizations that had the power and the scope to really make real large scale change possible for a very long time, and listen to a lot of excuses about why that wasn't possible. And that is now no longer the case this year. And so I would say that, it's very colloquial wisdom amongst everyone else that who you surround yourself with has really big impact on your outcomes and on your psychology and disposition. And I tell you what, this year I have been surrounding myself with other pegs, and I have started a company that also involves other pegs, and we're really doing some very interesting broad scale work. I've had some very surreal moments meeting with very influential people, and I finally hit it. That moment many of you may have like anticipated in the future, where you would like finally grow up big enough that whatever we started out as stops being like weird and zoo animal-ish and starts just being functional and impressive. And that apparently is a real point in time, and I finally hit it. And that was a bit of a relief. So for any of you that might still be tracking working towards that moment. It does exist in the future. And I have very much appreciated that, and very much appreciated the opportunity that all of the awful things that happened in this last year have given us to collapse the distance, to make and keep the connections that we want to, regardless of where in the world they exist, and to reach out and find the pressure points that allow us to change the world in ways that we want to see.
Sorry, absolutely. Thank you so much, Gold. Good to see you.
Likewise.
I think we have just a couple minutes. I would say I really appreciate both of your opinions, and something that is true for me as well that I heard from both of you is the importance of your friends and your community and finding that in other pegs. In my time since I was at Mary Baldwin and at PEG, I've been in boardrooms and big East Coast conferences and Ivy Leagues and all that jazz. And I became very disconnected from a lot of what really brought me joy and a lot of stability. And I think I conflated sometimes achievement to survive from connection to thrive. And I think that this year has really helped me get a little bit of space to understand that more clearly. And so when I was able to connect with Adrienne, that's why I've really been able to push towards helping Mary Baldwin, because when I look in my life, PEG and Mary Baldwin really saved who I am and made me who I am more than anything else. And I want to pay back that. I want to show my gratitude and help enrich that and enable that for other people out there. And I know that all these other people on the call, we've all had good and bad experiences in our life. Some of those are around PEG, but I think really this community that we have is very, very special on earth, period. And I think that it's something that is really beautiful. So thank you all for being my PEG siblings, for all the people on the staff and faculty who've helped enshrine this, and to the PEG parents and siblings and other folks who've either given us the space to go on this journey ourselves or who supported us along it. At any rate, I'll pass it back over to Adrienne, but thank you so much for sharing your voices on this call today.
Thank you all so much. And if you have not been showing love, throw some in the chat room, because my goodness, I'm constantly blown away by the voices that we have here. And so I think the three of you so very much, Annapurna, Gold, and Mihaela, thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing with us your stories today. And always, I mean, you're always here, you're always giving of your time, and that just means the world and helps us to be able to continue to further our engagement efforts, especially as we seek to enhance what we have been doing and take that next step with a lot more intentionality as it relates around our PEG alumni program. So I thank you all so much for your time and just for your insights over this past year. And it's just so good to see your faces, you know, and I hope that someday very soon I'll get to meet you all physically and we can do that safely and high five wherever we find ourselves. So thank you guys. So now I would like to turn it over and invite my good colleagues, Carla Vandevander, Professor of Education and PEG Director, as well as Christy Baker, our Associate Director of PEG. I appreciate you both so much for your time today and helping just to share a little bit about what's on the horizon for PEG itself, and then also for our PEG alumni. But more importantly, I appreciate you both in the partnership that you have given and provided me over this past year to help us be able to do programs like this. So you all are gems and a pleasure to work with. And so Carla, I'll invite you now to unmute and take it away with the next part of our program.
Thank you, Adrienne. We really value you and everything that you've done. We really can't thank you enough. So we appreciate it. And we thank all of you that have spoken today, the wonderful things that have been said and that we've gotten to learn. And it's just been amazing. So thank you to everyone who's here. Those of us who are PEG administrators or PEG staff, we feel that it's very important for us to do all that we can to provide as many opportunities as possible to the current PEG students. We really don't want their experience at Mary Baldwin to feel like it's something that's happening to them. Rather, we want them to have ownership and control over their time at the university. And we hope that when they graduate, they feel that their unique experience allowed them to learn, grow, nurture the many facets of their interests and abilities. And so with that in mind, we understand the value that can come from being connected to former PEGs who are now experts in their particular field. And so we are really excited to announce that we're going to be able to provide a PEG mentoring program. And we hope to have as many PEG alumni as possible participate. We want to have each and every interested PEG student be able to connect with a PEG alumni who can provide the students with expert advice on their next steps, who understands and can support them through their unique college experience. And we hope that this is something that all of the PEG alum would be willing to consider and would be willing to participate in. And we're really excited about this. And we look forward to watching this initiative grow. And we have another exciting initiative coming down the pike, and Christy Baker is going to talk with us about that. Christy?
Thank you so much, Carla. And I really have to give a special thanks to Mahala Byrne and also to Sarah Outerson Murphy, who I think I've seen on this call. I just remember having conversations with the two of you years ago about starting this mentoring program, and you've worked tirelessly. And now with Adrian's help, I think we've really got it going, and I'm so excited. I know that the opportunity for current PEG students to connect with someone who has walked the walk and knows exactly what the experience is like is going to be so valuable. And I know all of our current students are going to take advantage of this great opportunity, this gift that you're giving them. So thank you both, and to all the others who've been in on the project from the ground up. And then I also wanted to mention an idea that actually sprang up out of some of the meetings that we actually had to prepare for this event. And that is the idea of creating a digital scrapbook, because we have so many talented PEGs. Obviously, we've seen some wonderful examples of our fantastic students who have been able to share with us today. So there's so many talented PEG students who've gone on to do amazing things. And we want to document that as much as we can and have that provide a source of inspiration to current PEG students, and then also to help us with the recruitment process. So the future of PEG will benefit from this project as well, so that they can look at your stories, look at your pictures, any experiences that you'd like to share, words of wisdom, and just use that to get inspired and to see then how they can use their gifts to open some of those same doors for themselves that you've already walked through. So we're working on this scrapbook, and we hope to have everybody share their information when the time comes, and more information on how you can submit to that project is forthcoming. We're still working through the process, but I hope to hear from many of you so that we can collect your really unique stories and share those with others. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here and for participating. I'd like to pass it back over to Adrian now, and I think she's going to wrap us up.
Awesome. Yes. And so thank you, Carla and Christy. I just appreciate you always take my phone call and reply back to me. And I'm like, hey, we have a cool or crazy idea, or hey, an alum has reached out with this cool or crazy idea. How can we make it work? And you both are just always ready at the helm to help make the magic happen. So my sincere appreciation for you all being here today. So I am going to wrap up our official portion of the official program right now, and just offer a sincere thank you to all of the folks who have been with us today, offering their wisdom, their insights, their research. It's just, I think the thing that resonates the most about Mary Baldwin with me is that family really does feel, community really does feel like family here. It's everyone has your back. Everyone wants to advance the institution and do what's in the best interest for our students and for our future students and for our past students. And so it's been a pleasure to be with you here, and to say thank you all so much, if you are not a PEG alum, for coming to hear a little bit more and learning more about the health program for the exceptionally gifted. We wanted this program to be open so that all alumni could walk away with a tenet of pride in their alma mater for the great things that are happening within that particular program. So if you will stick around, I'm going to officially stop recording and then do the breakout facilitation. But for the purposes of everyone tuning in and for the purposes of those watching this recording later, we thank you so much. I wish you the very best in your lives. Be in good health always. And thank you for celebrating Homecoming 2021 with us here at Mary Baldwin. Be well, everyone.